Now on the Y. Here. It's a spooky special edition all about Halloween. From candy to costumes and commercial success, we dive into the darkness and unveil the history of the holiday. Plus, longtime tricks get answered.
We've gone from razor blades and apples to drugged candy. Has there ever been any evidence that this actually happens with any sort of frequency?
This is the Y Halloween Special with Lauren Magarino.
Thanks for joining us from our Chicago studios. I'm Lauren Magarino, and this is The Why, where we explore the reasons and the facts behind the headlines. And this is a very special Halloween edition of The Why. But you know what? Something doesn't feel right. Hold on a second. That is more like it. And one more thing. There we go. Yes, Halloween is the time of the year where we dress up, but it is also so much more. Scary stories, haunted houses, candy, my favorite part, and jack-o'-lanterns. And today, we're gonna explore it all. Why is the holiday such a huge commercial success? Why are adults just as into it as kids? And why do we always hear about tampered candy? And why do so many of us love scary movies? But first, we look at the history of the holiday and why we celebrate it in the first place. Before black cats, haunted houses, and trick-or-treating, there was an ancient fall festival predating Halloween as we know it.
It comes from the ancient Irish Celtic celebration of Samhain, which was their New Year's festival.
Lisa Morton is the author of several Halloween books. She says the Celtic people had an annual celebration marking the end of fall and the beginning of a colder, darker season. Morton says the Celtics believed the barrier between seasons also meant the barrier between worlds was down.
They believed in an other world where these malicious things called the She resided, and on Samhain those things could cross over and wreak all kinds of terrible havoc.
Sounds pretty spooky, but the Halloween of today isn't influenced just by the Celtic tradition, according to American holidays scholar Daniel Gifford.
There's Scottish influences, there's Celtic influences, there's German folk tales about witches and things in the forest. A lot of these traditions go all the way back to Roman times. There's Catholic elements and All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day. So it's really just kind of this big stew of influences.
The Christian holiday of All Saints' Day celebrated the saints of the church on November 1st. Back then, it was called Hallow Mass. The night before was All Hallows' Eve, which eventually turned into Halloween. The day after, or November 2nd, is known as All Souls' Day.
All Souls' Day is commemoration of the dead and praying for the dead to help them move from purgatory into paradise.
Beth Allison Barr is a history professor at Baylor University.
I think the Halloween that we have today is definitely more derivative of the medieval All Hallows' Eve tradition. And I say that because most of the customs we have stem from the medieval celebration.
Those customs have evolved over time, but many still trace their roots to centuries ago. Customs like witches, goblins, and jack-o'-lanterns.
Pumpkins and the jack-o'-lantern come from the Irish, who used to like to play pranks on people in their own homeland by carving these big gourds or these huge turnips that they had. And they would carve this spooky face on them, and the spooky face was supposed to represent a legendary character called Jack of the Lantern, Jack-o'-lantern.
That pranking was also a staple of the holiday early on.
Young guys, young men and boys were still, using the opportunity to play pranks, to cause mischief, to vandalize. Older, to get rowdy and drunk.
Pranking becomes huge in the early 20th century for Halloween, and by the 1930s, it has become so destructive that cities are trying to figure out some way to buy these kids off, and that's when we get trick or treat.
Trick or treat was not the friendly greeting we think of today, but rather a compromise. Give us a treat or we'll trick you. The tradition helped Halloween evolve into the kid-centric day it is now.
You have this shift towards more and more children. What we recognize as trick-or-treating, I think, really takes off after World War II with the suburban boom. If you think about a typical suburb with all those houses, one after the other, everyone kind of, is in a single community. It's tailor-made for trick-or-treating. And so that really takes off. It stays focused on kids, and it just grows.
While the holiday caters to kids today, it still appeals to adults too, according to Catherine Cullen from the National Retail Federation.
We've seen a lot of young adults embracing this holiday. It really is a visual holiday. And I think we have seen with the rise of social media platforms, people sharing their lives and inspiration on a variety of channels and in a variety of ways with their friends and family. We've seen that grow over the last decade, and Halloween is the perfect holiday for people to bring all of that together.
And to do it all without too much real Halloween fear.
We like it for the same reason that we like a good horror movie or going through a haunted attraction. We like to test our fears in a really safe environment. And Halloween lets us be playful about it and be creative and be whimsical. And I think that's part of why it has just continued to grow in popularity.
From an old fall festival and a religious commemoration to today's candy and costume-crazed celebration, Halloween remains a holiday that is scarily successful. Do not go anywhere. We have a lot more coming up on this Halloween special edition of The Why. Are you planning to watch a scary movie to celebrate this year? Maybe you already have. We'll look at why we love horror movies. And next, why the kid-friendly holiday is becoming more popular among adults. How much us adults are willing to spend may spook you. That's after this. But first, some trivia for you to chew on with your candy. How much are Americans projected to spend on Halloween this year? A few options for you below. Think about it. We'll be back with the answer right after this.
Growing up in Michigan, Halloween was always cold, snowy, and icy. One year it was so bad my Dracula mask stuck to my face. But I didn't give up on the candy. It's all about the candy. Happy Halloween.
The best Halloween costume I ever had was a ninja costume. And I say this was the best one because I wore it for years and years and years.
My favorite Halloween memory is going to Six Flags Fright Fest. Nothing scarier than getting spooked by some people in scary costumes and then riding a roller coaster afterwards.
A fun look at Halloween through some of our colleagues at Newsy. Welcome back to a special Halloween edition of The Why. We're looking at all things Halloween today and asking why. Now, before the break, we told you about the history of the holiday. In just a moment, we'll look at why it's more popular now among adults. But first, the answer to our trivia question. We asked you before the break, how much will Americans spend on Halloween this year? That was the question. Hey, there is your answer. According to the National Retail Federation, we'll spend $10.6 billion on the holiday this year. I don't know if that scares you or what, but the biggest area of spending is on costumes. This year, Americans are expected to spend $3.6 billion on costumes, and most of that is for adult and children's costumes. But according to the projections, we'll also spend more than $700 million on costumes for our pets. I regret to inform you, my dog Suki will not participate in that part of the holidays. These days, all she tolerates is a fall sweater. That's it. I tried, but she won't have it. But I'll be celebrating the holiday with friends, and so will many adults. Leslie Bannatyne is the author of Halloween Nation, Behind the Scenes of America's Fright Night, and she's written extensively about the holiday. She's with us now. Leslie, thank you so much for joining us on The Why, and happy Halloween. And off the bat, I mean, just the figures. The National Retail Federation says that almost 70% of Americans will celebrate this year, and we can see really how that compares to some other secular holidays. I mean, just about half of Americans celebrate Valentine's Day and St. Patrick's Day. But it's not just kids celebrating Halloween. Why is this holiday so popular among adults?
I think there's a lot of reasons, but one main one I'd say is nostalgia. Kids who loved trick-or-treating, who loved being out after dark in a cape and horns, the magic of that, the freedom of that, they're just not willing to give it up yet. And there are ways as an adult that you can kind of recapture that delicious part of childhood. I think another reason adults love Halloween is that it's a little edgy. You know, Halloween pushes the boundaries. It's all about what's strange, what's outrageous, what's mysterious, even terrifying. And we like that. I mean, most cultures have a night or a holiday where anything goes. Halloween is ours.
Well, most adults, not all, but most have given up on going door to door for candy, right? So when you say that it's tapping back into that nostalgia and it's got a little bit of edge, how are adults celebrating?
The adult Halloween entertainment business has grown with adult Halloween celebrations. So it's a myriad of things. The haunted house industry, you know, those houses you walk through and custom characters
Oh
jump
yeah.
from.
Oh yeah.
That has come back with a vengeance after COVID. But if that's not your thing, just about any town has cemetery tours. They have costume parades, pumpkin festivals, pumpkin carving festivals, pumpkin beer festivals, horror movie nights, horror burlesque shows, horror drag shows, vampire balls, witches balls, even costume parades for your pets. You
Oh.
notice it's a very popular thing. So the thing about celebrating Halloween as an adult is that you never have to do it alone. There's always people who are willing to go out with you or play with you, and there'll be people wherever you go loving the same things that you love.
Will Halloween continue to grow? I mean, as some of these younger adults, if you will, grow up and maybe retire from it, or you think, no, it's going to stay?
I think it's definitely going to stay. In fact, I think it's going to grow for a while because actually we are exporting it. We are exporting American Halloween to countries that never celebrated it before. Sweden, Japan, South Africa, different places that have fallen in love with it through American media. So I think, yes, it will continue to grow also because although some people might get retired from Halloween, say, I don't want to do this anymore, there's still people coming up behind them that will love to celebrate. And on the other side of trick-or-treating, there are a lot of us who still love to craft and decorate and celebrate Halloween. So it's something that's here to stay, I think.
Well, I mean, as you described that, it's gone across borders and popular culture is so ingrained and enmeshed in it. And I didn't even think about the craft aspect, you know, of the decor, of the even seasonally, just adding, you know, the candles and the cobwebs and, you know, all this stuff that just is built around it. So it definitely makes sense when you paint the picture that this is not going to go anywhere. I'm curious. Do you have your costume picked out?
I do. I have several.
Oh,
I have a few
walk us
things.
through. Okay.
I've got everything from mad scientist to witch. I have a whole closet of witchwear that I can draw from, and it never ceases to be fun for me.
I love it. I love it. Well, Leslie Bannatyne is the author of several Halloween books. She's got several costumes lined up for this year. Leslie, thank you so much for joining us on The Why and sharing your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
More of our Halloween special is still ahead. We'll look at why some of us love a good horror movie. Plus, have you seen warnings about dangerous Halloween candy? There's little evidence that it's a real danger around the holidays. So why do we always hear about this story? We're debunking the urban legend next on The Why. Welcome back to the Why Halloween special. We're looking at the customs, traditions, and history behind the holiday. Thanks for joining us and happy Halloween. We've already learned about the history of the holiday and just how much we're spending on it, big bucks. And now we want to look at a story that pops up in the headlines this time of the year.
A warning for parents ahead of Halloween.
Yeah, police want to remind you to double check your kids' Halloween candy.
Back here in the tri-state ahead of Halloween activities, some parents are expressing concerns before trick-or-treating as they fear their kids' candy bag may have something deadly inside.
And officials are warning parents to be extra cautious when taking your kids door to door for collecting candy.
You get in the theme here. You've probably seen coverage about tampered candy during the Halloween season, and the DEA recently warned about bright-colored fentanyl pills made to appeal to children, but the agency says there is no connection to Halloween. And this is nothing new. Stories of dangerous candy go back decades. Now, Joel Best is a professor of sociology and criminal justice at the University of Delaware, and he's written about this repeated story around this time of year. Joel, thank you for being with us, and I want to show you a story from the New York Times. This is actually from 1970 in a story titled "Those Treats Might Be Tricks." And the author wrote, quote, "That plump red apple that Junior gets from a kindly old woman down the block, it may have a razor blade hidden inside." You know, we've gone from razor blades and apples to drugged candy. Has there ever been any evidence that this actually happens with any sort of frequency?
No.
Okay.
No, I've looked back to 1958, and I can't find any evidence that any child has been killed or seriously hurt from a contaminated treat picked up in the course of trick-or-treating.
So given that you haven't found that, why is it that we fixate on this idea of a Halloween sadist, out to get little kids? Where does that come from?
Well, Halloween is supposed to be scary, and most of us don't believe in ghosts and goblins anymore, but we believe in criminals. And so we've just taken our current notion of scariness and applied it to this story.
And as you mentioned, how far back you've looked at this, what did you find? You found that wasn't necessarily the case where candy was, getting tainted.
Right. There aren't very many reports. There are only 100 and some in all the years since 1958. And, only a handful of them mention any kind of injury. A very typical press story is somebody found a pin in a candy bar. Fortunately, no one was hurt.
Okay, so that's probably, the example that you're getting, not many other cases. I know you started researching and writing about this, as you mentioned, 40 years ago. And is it part of the Halloween tradition, do you think? Or is there a chance, that this narrative will go away? What do you think?
Well, it certainly doesn't seem to be going away. I've been given interviews like this for a long time, and the facts don't seem to matter very much. What is happening is that we continually update this to take into account new concerns. So this year it's fentanyl. A couple years ago it was THC in edible marijuana. As something new comes along, people take that and couple it to the fear of the Halloween sadist, and so they're continually updating the story.
Well, do you think the media plays a role in keeping this updated and kind of adding to the false narrative?
Well, I think those shots of local newscasters warning that parents ought to be careful probably doesn't help. There's nothing to report about here. After Halloween, there are almost certainly not going to be any reports of children poisoned by fentanyl. And so the media just kind of leads into this and says, "Oh, worry, worry, worry," which is part of what the media does.
Well, Joel Best, thank you for joining us on The Why and doing the opposite of that and telling us, hey, don't worry about this. There's no track record, that we need to be alarmed about. So thank you for the time. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
One final why for you after the break. It's one of the most popular film genres in the world. And despite some of us covering our eyes for half of it, that's me, horror still sells with many Americans. So why do we love horror movies? That's next. Welcome back to the Why Halloween special. We've been talking about the holiday and looking at its roots, popularity, and traditions. And what you might have during this time of year is watching your favorite scary movie. Casey Mendoza looks at why we enjoy horror movies in our One Last Why segment.
'Tis the season to be scared, and what better way to accomplish that than with a horror movie? The very first horror film, Le Manoir du Diable, or The House of the Devil, came out in 1898. And since then, horror has expanded to include even more monster movies, slasher flicks, psychological thrillers, and everything in between. A 2021 poll found that just half of Americans enjoy scary movies. So what's driven the history of horror?
Horror is a cyclical thing where what's popular on day one at the end of the year is no longer popular and something else is.
Darren Lynn Bousman has directed horror movies for over 2 decades, including several films in the Saw franchise. His latest, Spiral, made over $40 million worldwide in 2021.
When I started off making the Saw films, gore and violence was a gimmick. I used it to try to gross out the audience, as well as one-up other horror filmmakers.
While the 70s and 80s were known for slasher franchises like Halloween and Friday the 13th, the early 2000s started a trend of violent gore. Today's era of horror centers more on psychological suspense and social commentary, But throughout the decades, what exactly has drawn audiences to horror? A Harvard Business Review report found fear can release adrenaline, satisfy audience curiosities about humanity, and make them feel a sense of adventure. The highest-grossing horror movies are the 1975 monster movie Jaws, the 2007 apocalypse thriller I Am Legend, and the 2017 remake of Stephen King's It.
Sometimes the monsters are actually very normal things that we then have to sort of breathe even life into and make them terrifying. And so sometimes that's even more exciting than just recreating something from scratch.
Jordan Souls is part of the team at Rodeo FX, the studio behind some of the scariest monsters in recent horror history. The Demogorgons of Stranger Things, the giant caterpillar of Resident Evil, and Pennywise the Clown from It.
You guys were probably 90% responsible for the nightmares I had for like a whole year.
You're welcome.
Villains like Pennywise the Clown personify some of our greatest fears. But beyond the monsters, gore, and jump scares, what exactly makes something scary?
It's the story. That's the thing that's causing all of the tension and all of the fear. Those are the things that we love being a part of.
Love them or hate them, horror movies aren't going away anytime soon, even if you cover your eyes throughout. Casey Mendoza, Newsy.
Thanks to Casey for that. I will admit I am not a fan of horror movies, but I'll let the rest of you enjoy them. Go off. What's really scary is we're all out of time. Thank you for joining us for this Halloween special edition of The Why. As always, if you have any ideas, scary or otherwise, that you want us to explore, send us an email at thewhy@newsy.com. I'm Lauren Magarino from our entire team in Chicago. Thank you for watching and happy Halloween.